We're now live on YouTube.
Thank you, Leah. Right, just in terms of housekeeping, please be advised that we are live streaming, so please maintain proper etiquette throughout the meeting. Also, when you wish to speak, could you please, as usual, hold your hand up to the screen or finger. An officer will pick it up because I can't see everybody, and then prompt me that somebody wishes to speak. And in the meantime, if you would please keep your mics on mute to prevent background noise, that'd be much appreciated. And we will move on to declaration of interest. During declaration of interest, the officer would also take a roll call. So if you could please indicate that you are here. Obviously, if you're not here, then don't. And also declare any interest. Following that, the officer will also ask any other councillor present if they have any. And I'd ask you, James, to move straight on to that afterwards. So if you'd like to proceed, James, please.
Yes, Councillor Adams.
Here, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, present, no declarations.
Councillor Catchpole.
Here, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Hartley.
Here, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Holland.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Karimi Guvanlu.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Kelly.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Murrell. Councillor Murrell.
I think Councillor Murrell's having problems, James. He keeps dipping in and out of the meeting. I can see him, but he's not connected to audio.
I see. We'll check him at the end then. Councillor Nurden.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Prutton.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Riley.
Present, no declarations.
And we haven't got Councillor Ryman Tubb and Councillor Shaw here, I believe, at the moment. So that's complete. No declarations.
Thank you, James. Could we just check with the other councillors that may be present?
That's Councillor Hempsall. Do you have any declarations of interest?
Hi, James. No. Well, apart from, item on the agenda, just here to be of help and service if I need to, Chairman.
Thank you, Lana.
Declaration, fine.
Item 2, apologies, James.
Yes, Chairman, we have apologies from Councillor Bullman, Councillor King and Councillor Beadle, and Councillor Beadle's substitute is Councillor Karimi Guvanlu.
Welcome, Caroline, to the meeting. Thank you for substituting. We'll move on to the next item, item 3. This is the meeting held on the 8th of September, page 6. This is for the minutes being recorded as a true, correct record, then move on to matters arising afterwards. So page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and page 10. Can we agree they're true and correct record, committee?
Sorry, Chair, there's page 11 as well.
Sorry, my one's missing actually, for some reason. Yes, but yes, 11. Okay, Sue, I think you want to come in.
No, I was just saying I agree, it's all clear.
Thank you, Sue.
Sorry.
So notwithstanding, I don't have page 11. Is page 11 a true and correct record as well?
Yes, that's correct, Chairman.
Okie dokie. Okay, so that's agreed, James. Moving on to matters arising. Any matters arising? We clear, officers? No one's indicating.
No one's indicating, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm making quick progress today. Chair's announcements. Just to say, if councillors haven't already realised that the exempt papers on the food innovation are late papers. Some may have received them in the post this morning. I haven't. So to look at those papers, you'll have to go onto your iPad and go onto cabinet papers, and it's page 204 within that report. The officer will be given a full report on it when he arrives to do that, TIG. And the other announcement is that, as we all know, Sarah has left and for pastures new, and we have a new officer that will be servicing ONS, and that is Sue Elliott, who is here present today. Just introducing Sue as the new officer. Welcome, Sue. I think you're there.
Thank you very much. Pleased to be here.
Thank you, Sue. So look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you, Sue. Moving on to public speaking, I believe, James, we do have a public speaker.
We do have a public speaker, yes, Chairman. It's Graham Everett, who's wants to speak on the response to the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government consultations.
Okay, I don't know if Councillor Everett is present at the moment.
Not yet.
No, he is. Yes, he is, Chairman.
Okay. I'm just saying to ex-councillor Everett, I'll let you in, councillor. Sorry, let you in, Mr. Everett. When we get to the item 10, I'll invite you in then to speak. It is for 3 minutes. I don't have any latitude on that because it is under governance, Graham. But I'll let you in at that appropriate time when we come to the report, Graham. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Come up there. Nice to see you again.
Thanks, James. Thanks.
Right, so we're moving on to cabinet agenda, item 9, update on delivery plan post-COVID, and I believe that Sinead Curry, strategy and program managers, going to present. Page 24. Would you present, please, Sinead?
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of bringing this report to you today is to set out the updated delivery plan for 2020-21. And this reflects the updated priorities of the Council following the recent and ongoing impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. So just to give some context to this report, so Broadland, in conjunction with South Norfolk Council, agreed the joint delivery plan in February this year. And that plan went live in April, and it covers the period of 2020-21. The plan sets out the key projects and programmes of work that the Council wants to deliver in the coming year. And when the plan was agreed, it was anticipated it would be an interim 1-year plan, while a new 2-year plan was developed alongside a 2-year budget setting process for 21-22. So as we're all aware, in late March, the pandemic hit the UK, and understandably, this has had a continuous and ongoing impact on our communities, but it's also had an impact on the work that the Council had planned to deliver for the coming year. So in response to the impacts of the pandemic on the Council and the organisation and the communities and businesses, the Council's developed a recovery plan, which was agreed by councils a couple of months ago. And this set out our priorities to support our communities, residents and businesses to recover from the pandemic. So following this plan being agreed by councils, it was important that we reflected upon the delivery plan that was agreed earlier this year to ensure that the recovery work and the key projects and programmes were reflected within our priorities in the delivery plan. So the report you've got in front of you has the updated delivery plan for 2020-21. And this has the track changes to show what has changed since it is previously brought through to cabinets and council. So the report asks for council to approve the adoption of the updated plan for 2020-21. And as you can see alongside this recommendation, the report also asks for council's agreement to develop a 1-year plan for 2021-22 instead of a 2-year plan as originally set out. And this is because we recognise that it will be difficult for the council to plan effectively 2 years in advance at the moment. This is really because of the unpredictable environment we're currently working in. So what we are proposing is that we conduct a full review of the delivery plan and the programme of work for 21-22, engage with members on the content before the year end, and bring it back to councils for agreement in February 21. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sinead. So I'm opening it up for questions, debate.
Chairman, yep, Chairman, before we do that, we've just had Councillor Shaw and Councillor Murrell join the meeting. They seem to be having problems, but I just want to check if they can confirm their attendance and any declarations of interest.
Thank you, Emma.
Councillor Murrell, I'm attending. I have no declarations of interest.
Pleased to see you again, Martin. Wonderful.
Yes, a few ongoing issues at work, but we're hopefully getting through it now.
Good to have you. And Nigel?
Good morning. Finally got here. Nobody bothered to send me a passcode until I phoned up and got one this morning.
Oh, nice. Well done on finding it.
Yeah, well, nobody originally sent me a link, so I had to phone up yesterday to get that.
Okie dokie. Well, I did
yes, I'm here.
Do you have any declarations at all, Councillor Shaw?
No, I don't.
Fine.
Okie dokie. Thank you. So we'll continue now. So open it up for questions and debate. Are there any?
Councillor Nurdin had his hand, and then Councillor Kelly.
Okay, Grant, fire away, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, quite a comprehensive plan. If I look at paragraph 2.2, the last sentence in that says to enable success of the activities to be monitored, the delivery plan provides several delivery measures which will be reported into members on a quarterly basis. And when it talks about into members, can we just have a bit of clarity of whether that's going to be reporting to council, to cabinet, to overview and scrutiny, to economic success panel, or who is that going to be reported into? That's the first question, comment. Then I'm looking also at paragraph 6.1 under issues and risks, resource implications. It's aligned to the budget setting process and are subject to change if the budget changes. By having this document, does it mean that the medium-term financial plan, which is a 5-year plan, is to be binned? Surely this provides the framework or for the delivery of services over the next 5 years, and now we're just wanting to curtail it to a 1-year plan. So can I just have clarity on that?
Yeah, Sinead, would you like to respond, please?
Yeah, if I can pick up on the first question, and perhaps I can hand over to Debbie to pick up on the medium-term financial plan question. So in terms of the performance and the delivery measures, they go through to cabinets in Q2, 3 and 4, and they will be coming to ONS as they usually do for pre-cabinet.
Thank you.
Okay, Grant?
Yes, no, that's fine. I just wanted the clarity on that.
Good question, Grant, by the way, I thought. So Debbie, would you like to respond to 6.1?
Yes, happy to, Chair. In terms of the plan, there will always be a 5-year plan. Obviously, that is a extremely high-level medium-term financial plan. What this is talking about is the individual plan for the year, which obviously goes much more into detail, and we will obviously have to look at for going forward only for this year and also for next year, given the impacts of COVID.
So, and I think what you're saying, Debbie, is, and if I'm getting this wrong, then correct me, because it's just to actually scrutinise and clarify the point. So the overall 5-year plan is still in place, but you've got this 1-year review in, which of course may then mean that you have to, how can I put it, adjust the 5-year plan as you go forward, possibly as a result. Will that be Sarah, crazy?
Yes. Absolutely. Every year when we set our budgets, we always update the 5-year plan, because obviously things progress, and you know, we always update that as a matter of due course anyway. So we will always have a 5-year medium-term financial plan reviewed annually for anything drastic, and in fact it was reviewed earlier this year by Rodney and the team for the impacts of COVID, which came to full council. But in year we obviously have a much more detailed plan broken down by cost centres and everything, that plan that we obviously need to do for the forthcoming year.
Thank you, Debbie. Are you happy with that, Nigel? Grant?
Yes, that's brilliant. Thanks, Chairman. When we talk about the delivery plan as such, there are a couple of comments, questions that I'm going to put about that, but I'll wait for Councillor Kelly to put his questions first, and then I can come back on the actual plan itself. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Kelly, would you like to put your question, or?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is mainly to the officers and the officers. In the light of Michael Grove's comments yesterday that we should be working at home, and where we as a council had got plans in place for both South Norfolk and us to return back to the lodge and South Norfolk's headquarters, what impact do you think this is going to have on our operational service delivery if we still have to retain our officers at home rather than return to the headquarters of both councils? Your comments, please.
I'm not sure who wants to pick this up. Perhaps Emma might want to comment on this as well.
Yeah, I can come in. I can see Debbie indicating. I can see Hannah indicating. I'll pass to either Hannah or Debbie, because I know they had a catch up on this morning that I couldn't make.
Okay. Yes. Which one of you would like to come in, or both?
I'm happy to. I'm sure we can tag team on this one, Hannah. If I miss anything, basically to say, obviously this is a moving target all the time. Our plans, even when we were returning to work, were to have staff very agile, and a number of them wanted to continue to work from home, either full-time working from home or partially, so being some days in the office and some days at home as well. We will obviously abide by what's coming out of government. We have been going through a process of reorientation sessions for teams, all socially distanced. And obviously we've got measures now in place at both offices around to keep everybody safe there. The vast majority of our staff have and will continue to work from home. And we'll be looking at what comes out over the next few days in terms of development on that. But as I say, at the moment, I think it's more business as usual in terms of staff continuing to work from home, which is what we've always been doing there. And we've managed to deliver the services while that situation has been in place. Hannah, is there anything else you want to add?
I think you've covered it. It's about looking at the announcements that are coming through and adapting accordingly. But in terms of the announcement today, there is still the emphasis that, and the work that's gone in place in terms of making the offices secure, that where there is a business need to be in the workplace, then that allowance is still there to do that, and the work that's gone into ensuring that the workplaces are set up in the right way will continue. So again, we'll continue to monitor the messages that come out over the next few days and weeks.
Okay. Ken, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'd just like to compliment the officers and all of the staff, really, who, under trying circumstances in the last 6 months, have done an absolutely superb job, and my compliments to all of them for their efforts.
Yes, and I'm sure we'd all agree with that, Ken, for sure. So back to and hello, Hannah. I've just picked up actually you're at the meeting, so welcome as well. Back to you, Grant. I think you had another question or point.
Yes, no, thank you, Chairman. This is a joint delivery plan, and when it comes to the reporting on a quarterly basis, can I ask that when we receive the reports, we receive reports effectively just for Broadland. And then when it comes to the delivery measures, there are a couple of things here to do with, like, for example, measure number 8. We were looking at the collection rate for business rates. It's 99% collection for Broadland. I want to be able to see in the report just Broadland stuff. The next one is to meet the target for Greater Norwich. I'm just wondering what that is with regards to the number of new jobs created, while we have to meet the target for Greater Norwich as set out in the emerging local plan. A little bit curious about that. Going down to measure number 15, it says there that 2,000 residents to be supported by Q4. Is that 2,000 residents of both councils? In other words, where is there going to be a split when you talk about how you're going to measure the success of this plan? Is it for both councils, or is it just for Broadland Council? And then, like, for example, I wouldn't want to see anything about measure number 16. Then 17 is 800 persons assisted to live independently in by Q4. Is that for both councils or just Broadland? And then when you talk about 19, for example, 80% by Q4, 80%, are you going to measure the statistics separately for Broadland and for South Norfolk? It's those sort of things that I'm curious to know. When we receive these quarterly reports, are we going to be receiving a report on Broadland's activities, or are we going to be receiving a combined South Norfolk and Broadland set of figures? That's basically my comment and questions on the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Just before the officers come in, so I think the point that Grant's making, particularly when you look at 15 with this what appears to be a global figure there of obviously not the planet, of 2,000, then you go on to 17, 800 persons as he's referred to over pages 35 and 36. So clearly the question is that just Broadland, or is that overall figures, and can that be broken down? Who'd like to respond?
Hannah looks like she wants to.
Yeah, I'm happy to come in on this point.
Thank you, Hannah.
In terms of the measures that are in the plan that you have in front of you, this is what was agreed through council for the plan of the years. We haven't changed the measures as were set out in this update. In terms of the reporting schedule and reporting into Cabinet and ONS in terms of the overview, they absolutely will be bespoke council reports which will address the figures and the performances for Broadland Council. There are obviously some stats that are shared, be it particularly around kind of the staffing information, but where appropriate and relevant, it will absolutely be a Broadland figure and reporting to come through to ONS and Cabinet.
Thanks. So again, just final clarification on that, Hannah. Thank you for that. So if we can just take two examples. So 15, 2,000 residents to be supported. Then if you look at 17, 800 persons assisted to live independently, if I can just specifically talk about those two, I believe what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that is when that comes through quarterly, we'd have the broken down figures for Broadland. Is that correct, Hannah?
Yes, that's correct, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Grant, are you happy with that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Hannah.
I believe Phil Courtier would like to come in.
Oh, Phil, good morning, dear chap. I haven't seen you there yet.
Good morning, Councillor Riley. Just very quickly, I think at one point Councillor Nurden did refer to figures over a Greater Norwich area. There will be things that we still report in a Greater Norwich area because we plan across the Greater Norwich area. For example, employment rates are across the Greater Norwich area. So I do want to keep that caveat. We've consistently reported against that wider geography, and will continue to do so because that is where we plan across at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Phil, and good morning to you again. Okie dokie. Is there anyone else on the report before I move to recommendations?
And Nigel Brennan had his hand up, and then I've got two councillors in chat who've said they've wanted to come in, Councillor Karimi Guvanlu and then Councillor Catchpell.
Okay.
Can I speak?
Nigel, fire away,
Yeah,
please.
thank you, Chair. Yeah, can I just take us to page 50? People and communities, the finances. Unless I'm being completely stupid here, can somebody please explain to me all the underlinings, the strike throughs? There's some figures in bold, some in grey. I'm sorry, but I just can't make any sense of that table.
I guess this will be over to you, Debbie, will it?
Yes, Rodney, I think, is offline from yes, what it is the mended figures, because we've had money coming in from government and things like that. So the figures in red are replacing the bottom. So if you look on page 50, for instance, in the revenue budget under BDC, the bottom line total is 99183. So it's £9,183,000. For that, and income under BDC total is 4,995,000, and then the capital budget is still the same figure, 1,082,000. So what we're trying to do is make it clear to you the figures that we're changing.
Yeah, I think.
Chairman, can I just come in on that point? Throughout the report, what you've got is this is the updated delivery plan. So obviously you agreed it back in council. Obviously, because of the impact of COVID, we've had to look at what we can and can't deliver. So the track changes is there very much to advise you, so you can see the changes that we've made. Jamie makes a good point. We can send around a clean version of this once it's been approved at council, so you've got the clean version for you. But this was just to be able to highlight where we've made changes.
Could I also ask as well, is there a coloured version of this? Because I heard Debbie's talking about red or I also noticed a chart as well within documents. Which
yeah, it is a colour version, Steve. On the iPad, it's colour.
Right. Okay. I think it's part of that problem. I've noticed this. There's also some pie charts as well where the colour's not there, so it's very hard to distinguish what's being referenced in our hard copies here. Everything's just grey and black or white. So I think that's also, Nigel, causing a bit of confusion, isn't it?
Well, yeah, undoubtedly, because I didn't realise that it was supposed to be in colour, obviously, because I'm looking at the hard copy. But sorry, I'm still trying to get my head around this. Can we just take one box, which will be the communities and early help? Just go to the first one under SNC, just for an explanation. So we've got 1,1 in black showing here. We then got 63, which is underlined. And then to the right of that, there's 96, which is struck through.
So the figure is
do I take it then that it was 96 and it's now 63? Is that that's what I should be reading, is it?
Yes, so it used to be 1196, it's now 1163.
Right, okay. I've got it now, but I must confess, unless I was being very stupid, I just looked at it and I thought, what is all this? Okay, right, I'm with it now. Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, I've got it. Thank you.
About the colours, then we're all confused a bit.
Yeah, that would have made a difference. I think possibly. Yeah, I hope so. Thank you.
Okay, Caroline next, and then Sue Catchpole.
You've already mentioned what I was going to mention. I was just talking about the charts on page 32 and 33. They're all shades of grey to me, so I don't know which is what related to what. So is it possible to have the key words against each segment of the pie chart so it's more clearer? It's not very clear in shades of grey.
Chairman, can I just come in on this? I mean, ordinarily, I know we're in on, you know, I'm going to use that word I haven't used for a while, unprecedented times. I don't know if I can still say that now, but ordinarily all of these would be available on your iPad, so you would have them in colour. They are still there on your iPad. The paper copies are sent to assist in the meeting. What I'll do is I'll take away with the team and we'll look at where it will assist in printing sections of the agenda in colour. But obviously it is really expensive to do that. So if I can just encourage councillors to cross-reference between paper copies and iPad. But as I say, I'll take away looking at printing the colour copies where necessary.
Emma, you don't need to print it in colour. You just need to put the key word like business rates into the segment with the percentage. That would be easier than.
Yeah, and if I can just say this, if we go back in time as well, past life I had in London, that we would do this. We would actually, so you could keep things on a straight and narrow, around hundreds of copies of documents going out to all kinds of committees, and you see this sometimes parliamentary as well. You'd put in the coding in the box, so that therefore you don't have to rely upon the colour. Caroline's making quite a valid point there, and it saves you, Emma, time, your team, and also the expense of the colour printing. If it's simply putting in, you know, the letter code into the boxes, and job's done.
Yeah, no, agree with that, Chairman. Yeah, no, totally agree with that.
Thank you. Good point, Caroline, by the way. Right, Sue Catchpole, where are you?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of specific queries. On page 57, under F12, I'd just like to reiterate a point that has been made at a previous meeting, that could local councillors for market towns be included in that consultation. Then on page 89, it proposes the delivery of a single website and domain to serve both councils. That's well underway. Could I ask, is there a chat function on that? Because I think it's a priority of our residents to have their queries answered as soon as possible, and obviously with telephone access being limited, I think that would work quite well. And also, and last point, on page 93, we have a table which appears to suggest that the senior management team and executive support revenue budget has far exceeded what was set originally. Could we just have an explanation of what those figures cover and why the increase? Thank you.
Okay, just before officers come in on those points, just on F12, which I think is what Sue's first point was, on page 57, there has been issues around this. I know that I've had quite a number of issues back in Aylsham as a ward member in terms of what's going on down there. I'm actually being asked to hold street meetings, and if the consultation had been in place in the first place, then a lot of this would have been one, unavoidable, but also makes for a better provision. And I believe it is really incumbent upon the council to consult the local ward members within their areas on this. So I'd hope that the whoever it is the administration can pick up on this. I think it's probably the economic team that are in charge of this and coordinating. Is that possible, Emma?
Yeah, that's correct. So I think you've got three officers waiting, I think, to answer. So Phil can answer on the F12 comment around the market towns. Hannah can come in on the website, and then Rodney can come in on the figures on senior management.
Thank you. Fire away, Phil.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, very quickly. Yeah, a lot of the work that was done in the market towns around COVID was very quick, and there was a lack of in-depth consultation for obvious reasons. Anything moving forward for more permanent and longer term solutions, absolutely, there'll be a more rigorous consultation exercise, and I assure you that ward members will be involved in that.
Thank you, Phil. And I'd like to also make sure that's picked up in the minute as well. we've had a number of issues historically, Phil, as well, as you know. Yes, and I think, did you say, Emma, that Debbie and Rodney are going to come in?
Hannah will pick up the point on the website, and then Rodney will come in on the costings.
Thank you, Hannah. Far away.
Thank you. Yeah, good point on the website. So we've got an informal member workshop, which an invite will go out later today for members of SIAC and the joint members group to see kind of where we've got to on the website and to input into the next stages of development. Absolutely, chat is something that we can look at as part of our broader customer service strategy, and again looking at what services that might be more appropriate to, and will form part of our wider development work as we go through the development of the website. So thank you for raising it.
Thank you. Rodney?
Thank you, Chair. First, I need to apologise. I'm having trouble with my internet connection, so if you keep losing me, I do apologise about that. But very much what we've done for the adjusting the budgets is these reflect the information that went to Cabinet to reflect the changes affected by COVID-19. I haven't got the specific details about that increase in corporate costs, but to me that looks like the additional expenditure on the COVID-19 response being included within that line, which is why that would have gone up. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Rodney. If those points have been covered, okay, Sue, I'm going to move on here.
Yep, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Because I'm just looking at the time, and we've still got quite a lot on the agenda. Unless there's anybody else due to come in, I'm going to move to the recommendations. So I had one final check with the officers.
Sue Pruiton has been waiting a while, Chairman, so perhaps we can go to Sue and then move on.
Thank you. And apologies, Sue, because as you know, I can't see, so I'm
That's all right. It's very, very brief. It's when you were discussing the colours on the pie charts. You don't need to do colours. You can do symbols, can't you? You can have dots and stripes and all sorts of things, and then it doesn't matter whether it's black and white, red, blue, green, or indigo.
Okie dokie. Thanks, Sue.
Just a minor technical point.
Thank you, Sue.
That's all right.
So moving to page 28 and the recommendations. So we've got two here. To recommend the Cabinet approve the adoption of the updated delivery plan for 2020-21, and then two, to recommend the Cabinet approves development of the one-year plan for 2021, returning to councils in February 21. So it's both of those. Can we agree with those recommendations?
Yeah, I'll second, Chairman.
Thank you. Can we have a show of hands, please, or indicate?
Yep, that's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much, and thank you, officers, for coming. I normally put a welcome in. The only person I put a welcome in so far, Rodney, is you. So welcome, Rodney, as well. Thank you. Moving on to item 10. We have the lead officer on this is Helen. Phil is also present as well to pick up on questions. Before the officers present, I'm going to invite Graham in to speak. As I said, Graham, it's 3 minutes. I don't really have a lot of leeway on this, on the governance. Look forward to hearing what you have to say on this subject, Graham. Please fire away.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For those who do not know me, my name is Graham Everett. I'm Chairman of Drayton Parish Council, a former Broadland District Council member who sat on the Planning Committee and have a keen interest in all matters planning. So I'm here to share my views on Broadland's proposed responses to the government's white paper on planning for the future and to ask two questions. I also watched the space shaping panel live on YouTube. I have to say I'm very supportive of the proposed responses, especially keeping the threshold for affordable housing or first homes at the current level of 10, and the support for continuing neighbourhood plans, which, if I may say, Broadland District Council have been excellent at promoting and assisting with, especially Drayton Parish Council. We had excellent officers who helped us through the process, so I'm very pleased you're supporting and continue with that. I'm also very appreciative of comments by the Director of Place in questions 5 and 9A regarding the critical need for early engagement with town and parish councils along with local communities, as much of the new planning system will now be front-loaded. Right. I was also pleased that place shaping by the comments by Councillor Nurdin and Hempson, also Assistant Director of Planning, encouraging town and parish councils to submit their own responses to the government, which Drayton Parish Council currently is in the process of so doing. Right, my two questions are, will the proposed changes from the current Section 106 in sills payments to the new infrastructure levy only come into force when the new local plan is adopted in approximately 30 months' time and government passes new legislation? Or could plans that are currently in the system, unfortunately, could have been held up on COVID-19 be dragged into this from the Section 106? Currently, as far as I understand it, when a decision is approved, there's a requirement for the developer to commence it for 3 years. But as far as I know, there is never a requirement to complete the development. They can
Graham,
Graham,
apologies. Graham.
Concern is paid and how I think it is the value of the site, and when it's on occupancy, are there any safeguarding measures? Is there any?
Oh, we've just lost him. What we'll do, Steve, when we get him back in again, is I'll ask him to turn his video off, and I think we're going to have to ask him to ask his 2 questions again. He was at about 1.5 minutes, so we'll give him that time when he gets back in again.
Yeah, I think absolutely right.
So, what stage did you come to? You didn't hear the 2 questions.
Yeah,
Graham,
Graham, I'm going to ask you actually, Graham, because you've clearly got a drop there going on. If you can turn your video off, sometimes that helps. And then if you put your 2 questions, because we lost you.
So I'm still on gallery view, Steve. Do I need to change that to?
No, you're fine, Graham. I've just stopped your video for you, so you
okay.
should be okay.
Thank you. That will be improvement, Hannah. That'll be improvement to most people. Okay, so my 2 questions are: will the proposed changes to the current Section 106 and sills payments to the new infrastructure levy scheme only come into force when the local plan is adopted in approximately 30 months' time and ratified by government, or could applications currently in the system awaiting approval but held up by the COVID-19 situation, would they be affected? Could they be dragged unintentionally into the new scheme, or will the current application still be safeguarded with Section 106 and sills as at present? And secondly, my understanding of planning currently is when an application is approved, they are required to start development on a site within a set time, usually 2 or 3 years. There is no requirement to complete a site within any time. They can take as long as they want. With the new infrastructure levy, I believe it's payment at the end of the development site on completion and occupancy. So is there any safeguard to actually stop the developer holding back the final stages of development, drag it out to maybe not pay the infrastructure levy, which could have a consequence if councils borrow against it, which is what they can do. Thank you. I'm happy to clarify any points you wish to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Graham. And I'm going to move on to the officers to amplify the report. But what would make things very efficient now, I believe, would be if you could just give a response to Mr. Everett's questions. Mr. Everett's not allowed to come back and clarify on that. That's the rules of the governance on this. But at least please attempt to answer his questions. Then following that, if you could then move on to amplifying the report, please. And I believe it's Helen that's going to be the lead officer on this, supported by Phil. So fire away, Helen, please. And Phil, try to do your best around Mr. Everett's questions.
Good, thank you, and good morning, committee, and thank you, Steve. I'll just start as you.
By the way.
Thank you. Just to go straight to Mr. Everett's questions, and he has also contacted me direct, and we will be giving him a full response to these questions and some other questions he's also put to us. But at the moment, we don't actually know how the infrastructure levy will work. Obviously, it's a proposal in the white paper, so whether or not it will affect current permissions, whether there's going to be a transition between what is the community infrastructure levy and the new national infrastructure levy, and when payments will be paid and how that will work to existing permissions. We don't know the detail of that yet. Obviously, we've got in place some delayed payments that have come out of the revised SIL regulations that allow developers to delay some payments at the moment, but we're working within the regulations for that. So as the paper outlines, it is a consultation, so the detail we don't know yet. However, it is correct, as Mr. Everett has said, that the proposal in the white paper is that payments will be due at the end of the development, which is different to how we agree them at the moment through a phasing plan, and it's more upfront as we go through. So obviously we will wait to see the detail as it comes out through the white paper and what actually comes back from the consultation. The second question about developments not being built out in a timely way, I think that was the essence of what Mr. Everett was saying. At the moment there is no restrictions and there isn't any detail in the white paper to say that there will be extra controls that we have on developments to be carried out and completed in a time scale. So at the moment, in accordance with how we word conditions, it is actually commencement of development within a certain time period, but not completion. There is no proposals at the moment, as I've seen, that is going to change. So that is still probably going to be as is. But I think as everything happens in this national sort of changes, you know, until we get the detail, we won't know how that will come into play for all our existing and proposed developments moving forward.
Thank you, and I think that covers it. Also, it may be of interest as well for your written response, if you could also copy in the ONS committee as well, so we're just aware, because he was here today. So when you do respond with anything, you know, in writing to that, if you could copy us in as well, that'd be great, Helen.
That would be on the request of Mr. Everett, because obviously GPDR, we're not supposed to share private email addresses, which it has come through on. So we can check that out just to make sure Mr. Everett's happy with that, but we can't just copy in without obviously agreeing that personal information being shared with everybody. So I will check that out with him, but yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Everett to come back in now, Helen. Graham? Hello?
I'm just unmuted, Steve. Yeah,
Right.
yes, thank you.
I'm asking, Graham, I'm going to ask you, I'm sorry you can't comment on what's been said, but what I'm asking you to do is, I've just made a comment to Helen. She's going to also give a written response to you. And because you've been here today, asked these questions at ONS, I've just asked Helen if she can also copy the ONS members in with the actual response. Helen's just raised a point under GDPR, requesting your permission. Are you giving your permission for us to see the response that Helen is sending to you?
Yes, Steve, I am very happy to.
Thank you very much, Graham. So that clears that, Helen, if you could do that, please.
Yes, of course, Chair.
Thank you. Right, now, if we move on to presentation of the report, we've got the relevant pages are 94, 98, 105, 114, and I believe you're leading on this, Helen.
Yes.
So if you'd like to lead away, and
yes.
Phil will support where necessary. Thanks very much.
So I'll start by just giving an overview of the two consultations. Then I just would like to do some updates, Chair, from the place shaping panel, because there was 3 main updates to the paper for you today. So I will end with those updates for you at the end of my summary of the 2 papers. So obviously we've got 2 consultation papers before you today from the Ministry of Housing and Central Communities and Local Government. So there's 2 papers. There's the white paper, which is the most significant changes we will see to the planning system since 1947, and clearly outlining the government's direction of travel on how they are going to propose to shake up the planning system. That consultation is due to expire on the 29th of October. And then we have another consultation which is on the changes to the planning system, and that's the current planning systems. They're looking to probably bring in some changes ahead of the white paper, and it's looking like that direction of travel could be later this year. And I will go into those 4 key changes that they're proposing, and that consultation is due to expire on the 1st of October. And both your appendices, so Appendix 1, you have an overview of those proposed changes in those 2 papers, and then at Appendix 2 you have our suggested responses to the white paper. Then at Appendix 3, we have suggested responses to those current changes in the planning system. So just to give you an overview of the white paper, there are the key changes, as we've summarised in Appendix 1, which starts at page 98, relate to a radical overhaul of how we will be looking at allocating growth through our local plans moving forward. So they're looking to simplify that and focusing how we allocate land on 3 key areas, which is growth areas, those areas which would be suitable for substantial development, renewal areas, those which would be acceptable for they've called it gentle densification, including built up areas and smaller scale development, and then protected areas. So where areas that we would want to protect under the green belt, which obviously we haven't got any conservation areas, obviously, which we have, and perhaps things like historic and environmental reasons why we'd want to protect certain areas. So very much the key change here is that you would front load everything in your local plan. So at the moment, we go through quite a lot of iterations of the local plan and consultation. So defining the local plans is very much focusing on front loading everything, consulting with your statutory consultees as we see it up front, with your highway authorities, with the community. Community engagement is very important at this stage, and making sure everybody knows where these areas are for those future growth areas are coming. Because then what the government is hoping through the development management updates is it would be simpler and quicker to then obviously go through the new way of gaining planning permission. So what they're basically saying, if you've defined your growth area with all the relevant consultees and community involvement, then when your permission comes in, it goes through a quicker, faster way of gaining permission because you've agreed it all up front. So if it meets a criteria within your local plan, then you will almost then automatically get planning permission without a detailed planning application, which we're used to at the moment. That's because we've engaged with everybody up front and everybody knows where those growth areas will be going. As part of the development management policies, they're looking to have some national policies on those, whereby it would be the National Planning Policy Framework would be your guide to where you're assessing those applications that come forward rather than having detailed policies throughout the country. You'll note in some of our question responses that we're saying in principle that may be able to work, but actually we would probably still need some local policies to determine some elements of the planning application process. As part of front loading the local plan, the government is looking to have a national model design code, and actually setting out the parameters of where development will go, not only but also what it will look like. That would be new for Broadland District Council and how we set that up, and making sure we have detailed character areas and how that would work in practice. And the government is intimating that I think this is an area that was definitely picked up place shaping. If you have good quality beauty development, then that may get a faster track planning system, but we all sort of discussed that obviously how you define beauty is different to everybody else. But clearly you would have a criteria of actually saying if you're within your growth area, you meet this design code, then you're likely then to get permission. The other key change in the white paper is how we will collect developer contributions. At the moment, members will be aware that we have, under the Greater Norwich Growth Board, we have the Community Infrastructure Levy, where we collect money as part of the planning process, and how that is collected is obviously set out. At the moment, the government is proposing to have a national value-based flat rate charge set at a national levy called the Infrastructure Levy. There again, Mr. Everett's questions was very much associated around this. When will it be collected? How will it impact on existing development? We don't know the detail of that yet. And then they're looking at actually making sure we can have the relevant sort of mechanism to borrow against that national infrastructure levy and deliver more affordable housing as local authorities. So it is actually looking at having a better lever into perhaps borrowing money against the national infrastructure levy. There again, the detail on that is still out to come, and we don't know when that will be coming into force, whether, as I said, it's at the development plan stage when you get the new planning process, or whether it'll actually be earlier than that. Another section within the white paper is also looking at reforms to enforcement and making sure we place greater emphasis on the enforcement of planning standards and decisions. So they're looking to strengthen enforcement powers and sanctions to local authorities, which we welcome. You'll note in our proposed responses that we actually, although raising concerns in some of the areas highlighted, we are actually making comment on the direction of travel. So for the suggested responses, very much if this comes into place, this is our concerns, rather than saying outright that we don't think it should come into place. The other key paper, and I think the paper at Appendix 3 relating to the changes to the current planning system has more direct impacts on us and is likely to come, or when I say direct impacts, clearly the white paper is going to have significant impacts, but I think there will be quicker impacts on the current changes to the planning system if they come into place, due to the 4 key themes of that paper, that being changes to the standard methodology for assessing housing, local housing need, and members will be aware that relates to what we provide and how we sort of demonstrate whether at the moment under our methodology we have a 5-year housing land supply. For us, we do have concerns about how the new methodology is looking for the Greater Norwich. And just as a reminder that we calculate that under the 3 authorities of Broadland, South Norfolk and Norwich. And we do our annual monitoring report as three districts for the Greater Norwich area. At the moment, the standard methodology says that for the Greater Norwich area, our annual local housing need should be just over 2,000 dwellings. Under the new calculation, it increases significantly to 3,256 dwellings. That is a significant yearly target that we would be very hard to actually build out. And actually looking at the plan period, it is actually potentially adding another 25,000 dwellings to allocate above what we're also already looking to allocate in our new Greater Norwich local plan. So that is a significant concern, that actually how would we actually deliver those houses in our area, given that significant increase in the methodology. And I will just pick up on that as a result of place shaping, that we want to expand and put that detail into one of our questions. The other key changes they're looking to bring in sooner rather than later is ensuring that we have first homes as part of our affordable housing provision. In principle, we don't object to that. First homes being 30% of market value, they would still be in perpetuity. We wouldn't object in principle to that. And I just want to assure the committee today that all our questions relating to affordable housing in our proposed responses, as suggested, has come through our enabling officers as well. So we've been consulting with them for their input into our question responses. The other area of concern in the current changes proposals is they're looking to increase the threshold for affordable housing. So at the moment it sits at 10 dwellings. So if you're developing 10 or less dwellings, you don't have to provide any affordable housing. That came about as a ministerial advice coming in 2 or 3 years ago, where that was contrary to our own local plan policy within the joint core strategy, where we always sought affordable on sites of 5 or more. And at the time we raised concerns about that change. However, the proposed new change as an interim for 18 months is actually suggesting there should be no affordable housing coming forward on sites of 40 or 50. For us, that would have an impact because we do deliver affordable on our smaller sites. So we are raising concerns about that threshold changing and don't think it should change from the existing 10 threshold. The other area within the paper is extending the current permission in principle provisions to major development. There again, we've raised some concerns about how that may happen in place and how the process of dealing with that and actually giving more emphasis on that. That means you don't apply for outline planning permission, you just go for permissions in principle. There's less consultation on it, and it's more of actually if you meet a criteria, then you will get planning permission. So we have raised some concerns on that. I'm just going to, if I may, Chair, just update the place shaping and policy committee's updates to the questions that we have suggested. So if I can take you to page 105 on the white paper at Appendix 2. So question 1, we left it for place shaping panel to recommend to Cabinet the 3 words they associated most with the planning system. And those 3 words, as agreed by place shaping to be recommended forward, were overcomplicated. We took a hyphen there to make 1 word, time consuming and fragmented. So that will be going forward to Cabinet. At question 4, there was quite a lot of discussion about the suggested response put forward by officers, and that was amended, taking the view that when we go online and make the responses, it's probably we only have the ability to choose through 3. We were looking at actually how we could probably group some of those together. But if the actual questionnaire only allows you to bring 3 forward, then the 3 the place shaping panel would like to recommend are the environment, biodiversity and action on climate, increasing the affordability and supporting the local economy. So they replace 2 of the ones that were suggested by officers. And thirdly, at page 107, at question 8A, relating to the standard methodology, this is where obviously for us the figures would be greatly increased as a housing delivery and need for the area, which we've got serious concerns about. We are going to actually put in the Greater Norwich figures here and what that means for Broadland, with the additionality, actually go into detail about what that means in practice for us and how that would be difficult to achieve over the longer term. So they are the 3 recommendations to the paper that came out from the place shaping panel. I think that's quite an overview I've just given. If there's any other detailed questions, then Phil and I are here to answer those for you, Steve.
Thank you very much, and it's also trying to report on this as well and go through it in a segmented way. It's difficult, so you've done that very adequately, and thank you very much. Phil, do you want to add anything at this point?
No, Alan's done a very thorough job at going through the main highlights. I'm just very happy to take any questions or issues from members.
Okay, and also the points coming through from the place shaping committee. It's very good that we've been made aware of those. I think it's some distant past, ONS wasn't really looking too much at the panels, but we are doing that now. We're paying more attention to what panels are saying as it comes forward to Cabinet, which is a good thing, actually. So thanks for also highlighting that. So we'll open it up now for questions, points, etc. Who would like to come in first?
And we have Councillor Nurden and Councillor Holland.
Right, okay, far away, Grant.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't really have anything to comment on the responses, except that it's something that I thought about after the meeting of place shaping. And it goes with, it's regarding the affordable housing and the increase in the target. I have a bit of a concern that developers under the current regime, they could be building poor quality homes where inferior materials, etc., are being used in order to meet the affordable housing target that the council has got currently in place. And I just worry about because of what happened at the pastures development in Brundle, where one of my friends bought a house there, and virtually every week, and sometimes more than once a week, the repair people were at the house to fix things. So, you know, if you build quality homes rather than just trying to meet a target for affordability, you know, I would, my thoughts are that I want a proper house, a well-built house, rather than a house built to just meet a target.
Thank you, Grant. I think in terms of report, that's sort of more of an observation, Grant, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would also think that maybe something to do with the affordable housing target shifting from 10 currently to 40 to 50. You know, maybe something there. I would have thought maybe let's meet them halfway and say 25. Well, it's just a thought.
Okie dokie. Sue?
Thank you, Chair. It was just on page 110 under item 16 about sustainability is at the heart of our proposals. It's asking for our priorities, and it gives some examples of less reliance on cars, more green and open spaces, etc. And we've responded with something which seems to be a bit vague, to be honest. We don't seem to have given any specific examples of what our priorities are. That might just be me, but I feel like we could be. I feel like we're not really answering that question in the way it's been asked. I don't know if there's anybody's got any suggestions on that. Thank you.
Adam, could you just come back on that? Because what I'm seeing here is that I think you're flagging up to government on consultation that we believe that's a problem, and I think you said that in your presentation as well. Just want to come back on that, Helen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I think we've obviously we've made quite a generic response there, and clearly you could put more detail in there. Social sustainability and social mobility, making sure everybody has connectivity to all the services they need. So that is, you know, walking, cycling, good public transport. Not everybody will have access to a private car. So making sure that every development has good quality connectivity to service every resident who may be living on that new residential area. So it's making sure we've got that, and the viability and viability of our communities is making sure that they have all those facilities within easy walking, cycling, public transport connectivity, and obviously making sure they have that enhancement. So I think we've summed it up in that one sentence, but clearly we could put a bit more detail in there if required.
Yes, thank you. I think I take what you're saying, and you've got some lovely examples in there, so the cycling and the public transport and so on. I think for me, I just feel that our answer could be expanded slightly to include some of those examples, so it's clear what we are referring to. Thank you.
Are you sort of happy with that, Helen, and perhaps that passing that suggestion on to Cabinet as well?
I'm quite happy to report that to Cabinet to say that could be expanded with direct examples of how we want to achieve that, why we think those are important.
Thank you, Helen. Is there anyone else wishing to come in?
Councillor Adams.
Tony?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, there's one sort of recommendation I don't necessarily agree with. And it talks about, I think, do you agree that we establish a new body to support design, coding and building better places, and that each authority should have a chief officer for design and place making? And the suggested response is yes. Well, personally, I found national bodies generally tend to interfere and achieve very little. So I'm afraid that I don't think we should have a new body. As for having a new officer, I think the officers we've got at Broadland with Phil and Helen are more than adequate. So I can't, I'm afraid, Chairman, agree to the response under 18, but perhaps the officers would like to expand on that one. Thank you.
What did you say, Tony?
Sorry?
What page was you referring to?
It starts at the bottom of 112, I think. I've lost it now. Yeah, hold on.
111.
110.
Starts at 110,
right,
and goes on to 111, talking about a new body, which would be obviously one of these quangos.
Okay, Phil, would you like to?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, just in terms of the new post, it's worth noting that I think in my mind, we don't necessarily envisage a whole new role with a new person coming in. You'll remember, Councillor Adams, probably about 10, 15 years ago, government said every council should have a chief planner. It didn't mean that we employed a new chief planner. I think at that point, Phil Kirby's title just changed to director and chief planner. And then when he became chief exec, I became head of service and chief planner. I envisage a similar sort of situation here. We do have some people who are very capable of providing design guidance. So I do think that we could have a chief officer for design without employing a new officer. In terms of the new body to support design coding and building better places, you'll see it's a key strand of the government's desire to build beautiful, and everyone has their own mind what that may well be. There are existing bodies that seek to raise design standards. I don't think this is particularly revolutionary. I share some of your concerns, Councillor Adams, that you don't want them interfering and imposing their own ideas, but you do want guidance and you do want support in our efforts. I would hope that the word, and that question 18 does say, a new body to support design coding and building better places. If the role of that body is to support, not to interfere, I am comfortable with the answer.
The thing is though, Phil, we don't know, do we?
And I'm afraid, Councillor Riley, as is often the case with a white paper, this is setting out principles without giving us any flesh on the bones. It is often the flesh on the bones that is the crucial thing that can have the greatest impact. So yes, we are responding to principles, but yeah, that's part of our democratic system.
Chairman, as Helen will no doubt attest, we had quite an interesting planning application last Wednesday about design standards and what constitutes something of an outstanding merit. So I think, again, one that is very subjective, as I think Helen found out on last Wednesday.
Okie dokie. Is there anyone else wishing to come in?
Lana has just said, would you like her to come in as a portfolio holder? Is there anything?
Yeah, just before Lana comes in, was there any other councillors, Linda?
No more questions, no.
Okay. Yeah, Lana, yes, you're welcome to come in, Lana. Hello.
Sorry, Councillor Shaw has raised his hand. Sorry, Councillor Shaw has his hands raised.
All right, Nigel, you fire away, and then Lana, you can follow Nigel, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about the answers to these questions because they're not qualified. That's the problem. If the answers were qualified, you know, it'd be so much easier to say, well, yes, we agree with this, but we prefer to have this with it or that with it, not just left open. Because as has been mentioned, a white paper is very much, it's a sort of blank sheet for the government to be able to do what the heck they want. They could impose things on us that we don't want. So unless we qualify the answers, we could get stuck with something really bad.
Thank you, Nigel. Lana, did you want to come in now?
I can do. I'm just slightly amused by Nigel's response. It's that's what governments do. They sort of put legislation in that they see fit and then just go with it, and all the rest of us have to lump it. Hence, it's quite important to have an understanding which way you vote at general elections, because it does actually matter at some point. So that was my only point on that. As far as the consultation responses, I think as Grant picked up, a lot of them are, it's almost like a form ticking exercise where you can choose so many answers to fit in so many boxes, etc. That's why there was quite a lot of discussion on one of the answers that went into the one of the answers that we put in. Other than that, Helen's pretty much praised it very comprehensively. It is what it is, and we'll just, I think the answers are as good as they possibly can be, unless, you've got some really great ideas. I think the big question is what we do with the local plan, moving forward. So I think a decision is going to be made on that a week tomorrow, really, at the Greater Norwich local plan meeting. So that's probably more critical for us right now. This paper and these responses, as Nigel pointed out, government will do as government pleases, and will define beauty in whichever way it pleases. Quite looking forward to a Jacob Rees-Mogg definition of beauty. So, we might get some set of vernacular here up in Norfolk, which would be quite interesting. So, yeah, but other than that, just any input that members have is very welcome, because this is a Broadland District Council response to 2 very significant consultations, and I'm really glad that you're giving it the airtime that you have, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just a comment, observation really from myself, and also I'm just going to bring you in, Phil, on this before I do. The whole impetus behind this is to do with is connected intrinsically with the housing crisis and the need for the government to try to push forward more delivery. You can see on the stats how the delivery's fallen short, and particularly when you go back to the stats that the government produced in a green paper, or in a white paper under Theresa May, actually, going back 3 years ago, where you could see what actually structurally gone on in the housing market. Government figures, there was factual. In the 60s, we were building at pace. Housing supply from the public sector was at such a rate that house pricing and plot pricing, which is the key issue behind house pricing, remained stable, and we did not have a housing crisis. It all went wrong from that point onwards, as we all know, and for various reasons. However, it seems to me that what all this is about is trying to create a structural issue in terms of housing supply and demand via technical ways of prescribing how to plan. And at the end of the day, what's been trying to be achieved here in terms of more houses being built, this may well not actually contribute to that in any large part whatsoever, because particularly when you link it back up to affordable housing, as Helen said, and place shaping said as well, reading from the place shaping, we're moving from 10 to 50, so 40 to 50. How on earth does that link up and actually improves the situation on supply of affordable housing? It's insane, if you ask me. And then also put the impetus on more prescription for planners, for developers to actually be able to build. At the end of the day, we know how many plots are standing still because developers can't build on them, because in actual fact, people have not got the affordability to buy them. And that's why they're standing still. So they're the fundamental issues of government policy, Lana, as well, that need to be tackled. And I don't believe this will do any such thing, actually. It's actually tinkering with, yet again, another sticky plaster to try and improve the situation. Now, Phil, would you actually say that I'm wrong in any of that assumption, and that in actual fact, this will solve all of our problems?
Councillor Riley, you know me well enough. I'm never going to say you are wrong. but you also know me well enough that I'm not going to say the portfolio holder's wrong either. So
No, I'm not saying that. I don't believe Lana was commenting on that, actually.
No. If you'll allow me for a quick moment, and I'm not here to be a spokesperson for the government, but what the government are trying to do is they are trying to simplify the planning system. And I think we all recognise the planning system as it is at the moment is pretty impenetrable and is very complex, especially on the larger scale developments. So there has been a long plan to try to simplify the planning process, and that is what this is part of. In terms of the housing crisis, we know that there are multiple elements that are causing a housing crisis, from the mortgage markets as one example. Well, this planning white paper can't address the mortgage markets. But what it is trying to do is it's trying to increase certainty for the development industry. It's trying to increase the role of SMEs in the development industry. So in other words, bring in a greater range of builders. that can build out growth. It is also trying to help facilitate first-time buyers coming onto the housing market. So is it the silver bullet to the housing crisis? No. Is it trying to address some of the points that it can? Yes, it is. The test will be how successfully can it do that as and when these measures are implemented.
Thank you. I'm going to, unless there's anybody else, I'm going to move on to the recommendations now. Is there anybody else who wants to come in before we do that? No?
Councillor Harpley.
Councillor who?
No, Councillor Harpley.
Oh, Natasha.
Natasha
Yes.
Harpley. Sorry.
Natasha, far away.
Thank you. Just a very quick observation. It's about my main issue is with the SIL, really. We've had problems before with how the SIL has been implemented, and previously when they used to build, I don't know, a school or whatever instead of the SIL, you'd have people moving into developments before the schools had actually been built, and then you'd have whole communities moving into these new builds, such as Queen's Hills, for example, and there was no school for their kids to go to. We're going to have a similar situation again, where we're having the money but paid at the end. You'd have people moving into a development, and then all of the other bits and pieces that they need that could be purchased with the SIL isn't going to be in place. It doesn't help to build these stronger, safer communities, and I have real concerns about that. I mean, I'm no planning expert, I'm not on any of these committees, but it never seems to work in favour of the communities who are living there. It always seems to go in favour of the developers, and I'd like us to take a really strong stance against that if we can. But you know, I understand what you're saying, that it's not all clearly out there yet, but I do have quite strong concerns about how the SIL or whatever equivalent is going to be paid and when. And also, again, I know I mention this every time we talk about planning, but we keep talking about affordable housing. What about social housing? Because affordable isn't affordable to all. Under David Cameron's government, some affordable homes were £400,000. That's nearly double the average rate around here. We must be building social housing. There must be something in there for that, because affordable is not affordable. Especially now, people are being made redundant. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
I'll park my normal rant away until next time.
Thank you, Natasha. And I wouldn't disagree with you on social housing, but anyone else?
Phil Courtier was going to respond to it.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to disagree with most of what was said there. Just in terms of information, the issue with schools is, as a development starts, it is completely unviable for the county to effectively build a school when there's only a handful of people that will then occupy that school as students. So what we do get is this very uncomfortable sort of bulge in the population, which then you see lots of porter cabins as classrooms in the surrounding schools. Until they hit a certain peak, they can build a school and then they can pretty much fully occupy it. And it does give that uncomfortable buffer time. So it isn't just SIL. There are issues with SIL and the new infrastructure levy, but there are also just practicalities around that as well. I just wanted to pick up that as a point of information.
Thank you. Okay, so we're happy now for me to try to pull this together for the recommendation, because there's also overlaying this some input from place shaping, which I think I can try to sort out for us. We're happy for me to just summarise and move forward now with these recommendations to put to the committee. Everybody agree with that? Officers,
yeah.
okay?
Yes, everyone's in agreement.
So if we turn to, because we've got a little bit of a complication here, place shaping have made some very good points. As you know, it's the committee that panel that really focuses in on this. If on the recommendations, we have to agree draft response to the following MHCLG consultation documents outlined in appendices 2 and 3, and Helen's picked up as well on comments to Holland was making around that. Changes to the current planning system, white paper planning for the future. 2, delegate any updates to these responses to the Director of Place consultation with the leader, in consultation with the leader and portfolio holder for planning. So this will be going to cabinet. We have that, but then we also have, as Helen's mentioned as well, the points from place shaping. And what I'm considering here is putting to you also us encompassing points from place shaping to endorse those going forward to the cabinet as well. So those points are the words fragmented, overly complicated and time consuming to be included. Top 3 priorities for planning, question 4 on page 105 was increasing the affordability of new housing. 2, environmental biodiversity, action on climate change needs to be addressed as part of design and location of new homes and places. Supporting the local economy with more and better infrastructure. And then in terms of priority, if choice priority was the prescribed list, priority should be the environment, biodiversity, action on climate change, support the local economy, increased affordability of new housing. And this refers to the limit of only being able to answer 3 questions, I believe, Helen, that you was pointing out. So is it possible for us to also support that in going forward with the recommendations as outlined, as suggested to us? Is that possible, committee? Hello?
There seems to be.
You have Sue Elliott's trying to talk to you, Steve.
Sue Elliott. Sue?
Sorry, Chairman. I just also wanted to say that you also had another recommendation on question 16 that we were going to expand and give some examples of priorities.
Question 16. Can you just read that out for me?
Yes, it was the question on sustainability is at the heart of our proposals. What is your priorities for sustainability in your area? And you, Helen Mellors, agreed that she would add some clarity around that and give some examples.
Thank you, Sue. I did actually mention that just now as well.
Oh, did you? Sorry, I missed that.
Okay, thank you, because I might have missed it. Thanks very much. So could I propose that, as I've just said that, including that point as well?
I'll second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Tony. And could we agree that, committee? Could you please show thumb, finger, hand?
That's unanimous.
Sorry?
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Well, look, thank you, officers, for reporting. It got a bit complex at the end, but I hope the officers agree that I'm compos mentis today and we pulled that together, so thank you. And what I'll now do is move to a comfort break because we've still got the rest of the agenda to go, and it's it's coming up to 11:30. Could we please return at 11:35?
Chairman, can I just request everyone turns their videos off and remains on mute, please, whilst we're on a comfort break? Thank you.
Absolutely, Helen. Okay, see you at 11:35. Thank you. Thank you, officers. Linda, the other report has just arrived on the exempt minutes, just grabbing it.
Oh, Tony's got his too.
It's 11:36, so I'll just ask James if we can just go through the roll call again.
Yes, certainly. Councillor Adams, are you present?
I am, just.
Councillor Brennan?
Present.
Councillor Catchpole?
Present.
Councillor Hartley?
Present.
Councillor Holland? Councillor Holland, are you present? No. Councillor Karimi Guvanlu?
Present.
Councillor Kelly?
Present.
Councillor Murrell?
Present.
Councillor Nurden?
Present.
Councillor Prutton?
Present.
Councillor Riley?
Present.
And Councillor Shaw?
Almost, yes.
Yes. So it's just Councillor Holland. We have.
Councillor Holland is present. It's
Sorry,
just she didn't have
I'm present. I forgot to put my headphone in, so I didn't realise I'd been called. Apologies.
Thank you, Sue. Glad to see you're plugged in now. Right, we'll proceed. So next item on the agenda is agenda item 13 on the council papers. Council tax. No, it's not. Sorry. It's agenda item 12. Am I correct?
Chairman, I think it's agenda item 11.
11. I'm trying.
Greater Norwich
Okay,
Homeless.
I've lost my. Just a moment. Just a moment.
Page 122, if it helps.
Yeah,
Chairman.
122. I've lost page actually. Yeah, 11. Greater Norwich Homeless Strategy, 2020-25. Item 11. I think the lead officer is Victoria Parsons, Policy and Partnership Officer. Could you fire away, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So this is presenting the Greater Norwich Homelessness Strategy and the Broadland and South Norfolk Rough Sleeper Statement, which we're taking forward to Cabinet for approval and adoption. So it's the fourth iteration of our homelessness strategy that we've produced in partnership with Norwich City and South Norfolk Councils, and the first one since the introduction of the Homelessness Reduction Act in 2018. We're also presenting our first statement that specifically refers to rough sleeping, with the aim that we will seek to develop a Greater Norwich rough sleeper strategy from 2022 onwards. So the homelessness strategy has been developed over a nearly 2-year period. And as part of this, we identified priorities using evidence and a database approach and in close consultation with our partners. So in terms of those priorities that we've identified, we wanted to look at some of the specific issues of homelessness, such as domestic abuse. And DA was discussed quite in depth when the strategy was presented to the Wellbeing Panel back in August. And the document has since been updated to include some statistics for men experiencing domestic abuse. But we also wanted to look at some of the wider drivers of homelessness. So alleviating things such as low income, skills, training, and also accessing affordable housing as well. So the strategy was set for completion in the summer, but was delayed due to the COVID outbreak. But what that did, though, was give us an opportunity to review the priorities and make sure that they were still relevant in our sort of during and post pandemic times, and we feel they are still very much relevant. So to take us from a rough sleeper perspective, at the beginning of lockdown, we were able to offer accommodation to all those rough sleeping in the districts as part of the government's Everyone In request. And this was because our first step rough sleeper service had become well established. So we had that on the ground knowledge out there, and we could react really quickly. However, a lot of demand during this period has come from what we call transient and hidden homelessness. So that's people who are sofa surfing, who are in overcrowded accommodation or living with friends and family. And the pandemic meant their accommodation became untenable. So to take us slightly more up to date, as the moratorium on evictions ended yesterday, we're preparing for a large increase of people facing homelessness due to a loss of their rented accommodation. We're already seeing a lot of contact from people who are worried. So the housing team recently are taking around 2,000 calls per week for advice. So normally that's about 750 calls. So that just gives you some indication of how much the increase in demand that we're seeing. So just to move on slightly, the skills and training agenda is highly important in terms of preventing homelessness. So data suggests that economic recovery to pre-COVID level could take another 2 years, and that's dependent on further outbreaks. And a recent report by the Office for Budget Responsibility forecasts that 1 in 8 workers will be unemployed this winter. So this was something that we discussed at a recent Greater Norwich Homelessness Forum. And there's great opportunities, appetite from partners, to link into the existing work with that specific focus on homelessness prevention. So that's something that we'll be looking at taking forward through the strategy. So just to summarise, the documents aim to present priorities with actions that further develop our joined up response with partners to tackling homelessness and rough sleeping. So this feeds well not only into the work underway to redesign the housing offer in Broadland, in taking that person-centred approach to increase resilience and offer wraparound support for those who might need additional support, but also feeds well into our council's COVID recovery planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. And I didn't say welcome, but welcome to you belated.
Thank you.
So we'll open it up for questions, comments.
Councillor Nurdin and then Councillor Hartley.
Thank you. Grant, far away.
Thank you, Chairman. I support everything that's in this document, in these documents. But I'm just a little concerned about a statement being made by both councils. We have made in one of the items on the agenda later, we've made a statement, but it's Broadland specific. And I believe that everything in this statement could be modified so that it reads just Broadland District Council has a rough sleeper statement. Everything remains the same except you take out all reference to South Norfolk. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, are you? Sorry, Grant. I did lose a little bit of connection here. Did you say you was proposing that?
Yes, I would propose that the statement be a Broadland District Council only rough sleeper statement 2020 to 2022, and it is Broadland specific. It contains everything that is in here except that, for example, the introduction. This document articulates the Broadland District Council objectives for tackling rough sleeping across our district. The statement is complementary, etc., etc. But just take out reference to South Norfolk because I believe that we are eroding our sovereignty.
Okay, right. So what I think the best thing to do here at the moment, Ron, is I'll just park that. I'll come back onto that. I mean, obviously, officers can respond, and we've still got some debate to have possibly. So allow that to happen, and then can always come back onto that before we actually agree a recommendation or vary it or whatever. And you know me, Grant, I won't forget. So I don't know if any officers want to respond to that before any other councillors come in.
Did you want me to answer, Chair?
Richard,
Yes.
Richard Dunsire.
Yeah.
Richard, if you'd like to.
So it's a very valid point. What the main emphasis on having a look at it on a joint basis, and that's again part of the reason why we do this alongside Norwich as well, is that there is significant overflow for the impact of homelessness across all 4 specifics within the homelessness strategy. When we go to, we've been very successful in recent months trying to get additional funding from MHCLG for specific issues facing our districts, and that is across Broadland, South Norfolk and Norwich. By having these strategies, that shows that we are appreciative of the holistic issues that all 3 councils face for homelessness. It creates a more advantageous bid when we go to MHCLG and ask for more money. And I can't sit here and guarantee that due to our joint rough sleeper strategy that we've had over numerous years now, that's been the main driver for us getting the money. However, if we start showing things in isolation, it starts making it look like from a homelessness point of view we are focusing on our own demands and needs, which of course we are doing. But when you look at things on a bigger picture, especially with rough sleepers do not see any boundaries whatsoever. So you will see it. So someone will be in Norwich one night, this in another night, and Elsham in another night, and there's such a cross flow to rough sleepers that it is incredibly important that we work on an operational level to meet that very issue, and we do that through a rough sleeper initiative. So I think any strategy that we have should be across borders.
Thank you. Again, back to councillors. Any points or questions?
Sorry, if I can just, in response to what Richard was saying, yes, I fully support the Greater Norwich Homelessness Strategy. It's just the statement that I was referring to.
Okie dokie. Again, we can come back onto this, Grant. Is there any other councillors?
Another quite, we have Councillor Natasha Harpley, then Sue Catchpole, and also Councillor Karimi Guvanlu.
Okie dokie. Natasha, fire away, please.
Thank you, Chair. My comment is about the eviction ban being lifted. I understand that this is a central government decision, and I think it's utterly disgraceful that it's happened at this time. There could not be a worse time with redundancies coming and winter and all the rest of it. Is there anything we can do at a local level to mitigate that at all? And like I said, I understand that this is a central government decision, but can we take local measures to avoid that, or do we have to stick to national guidelines regarding that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Richard or Victoria?
Because it's more on an operational level, I think I'll answer this one if that's okay, Victoria, but please do add anything. So what we're trying, the restrictions was on the courts. So they basically lifted those restrictions on the courts to banning eviction, so they now have the power to do so. Every single, whether restrictions are there or not, one of the main purposes of a housing team is to keep people in the properties in which they're currently in. So one of the main tasks they do is when someone rings in and says my landlord would like me to leave the property, first thing the housing officer does is ring up the landlord to find out the reasons why and whether we can negotiate that person staying there any longer. And that work is really being focused on now. So throughout this whole process, anybody who's come to us and said, my landlord has served me a notice, we've contacted that landlord to see if we can negotiate that from not happening. Because, I mean, landlords, obviously, it's a financial, people become landlords for a number of reasons, but let's face it, there is a financial advantage of being a landlord. You get the rental income. So we need to make sure that we protect their interests as much as our interests. So say someone is in rent arrears, for example, and they haven't been able to pay, then we link in with our discretionary housing payment to see if we can release the arrears. These are all standard practices. It's just that it's becoming more of a team priority because let's face it, that's where the work is going to start drawing in.
Thank you. Sorry, can I just butt in very
Yep.
quickly? Are we able to increase the budget for discretionary housing payments? Perhaps, because I know there wasn't the excess from the COVID payments, wasn't there, that we hadn't used, or does that have to come from a separate pot, or what? Just something to make sure there's a bit more of a buffer, because there will be an increase of people who need to use it.
We're okay as we are now. To increase the money is a finance decision, and I would hate to comment on it.
Okay.
Well, could I just on that point, just again, it's scrutiny, so it then leads to this, you know, on funding. So just on this point, which at the moment, if that demand, as Natasha is indicating here, is indicating that there may be an increase in this, then at that point, would you be coming back to finance and therefore the various you know, ONS and cabinet to try to seek an increase to support that? I know that I don't know if Rodney's present at the moment or not. Ready for the next item?
Yeah, so if I can just comment on that,
Thank you, Rodney.
that would be exactly the process we would follow, Chair, in that obviously we've got the approved budgets that members set. If we felt there was a need to increase a budget in a certain area, for instance, it's discretionary sort of allowances, then yes, we would need to come back to members through the normal processes to request changes to budgets. So obviously we'll be keeping that under review with Richard's team to make sure actually if we need more money, we'll come back to members potentially seeking that.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. And I think it'd be helpful if we also, you know, reflect that in the minute as well. Because I think it's a very good point that's been raised, and it's clearly something that I know the officers want to make sure we do try to, you know, do the best that Broadland can to keep people in their homes. All the other costs, of course, escalate once that starts to go off and you get into a homeless situation. So it's actually prudent to do it. So thank you, Rodney, on that response. And if we could minute that to reflect that as well, I think that'd be very helpful. And of course, also flagging that up to Cabinet as well. So thank you, Rodney. And anyone else?
We have Sue Catchpole next, and then Caroline.
Sorry, you did say this. Yes, I've got Sue and then Caroline.
Thank you, Chair. It's as much a question. The priority areas, I was a bit surprised not to see people released from prison being prioritised at all. I understand that they have an assessment within the 8 weeks before they are due to leave prison, and a housing plan should be put in place for them. And obviously, if they leave prison without housing, then perhaps that is very likely to lead to reoffending. So I'm wondering why there is no mention of people in that position, and why this doesn't seem to cover that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could somebody cover that, please?
Yep, absolutely. I'm happy to cover that question. So, Councillor Catchpole, we don't refer specifically to people leaving prison within as a specific priority within the strategy. However, we could say that they're covered under the preventing homelessness for single people as well. We do make reference in the strategy to the prison release protocol. I can't remember the full name for it because it is quite a long name. And that is another joint protocol that we have with the probation service and prisons, and also with Norwich, South Norfolk, and also Broadland district councils, which aims to get that work started earlier for people who are preparing to leave prison, so that we can make sure that if they are facing homelessness, that work can start sooner, so they're not looking at leaving prison to a no fixed abode.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you, Victoria. Do we know of people leaving prison who want to live in the Broadland area? What proportion are actually housed, and is there a proportion that are left unhoused?
Off the top of my head, I don't know what those figures would be, but that's something that I can find out. I would say anecdotally, when prisoners are released a lot of them do want to go to the Norwich City Council area. That it seems to be very popular because obviously there are sort of employment opportunities and service access to services there. But I can certainly try and find out what those numbers are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Caroline?
Yes, thanks, Chair. My comment was preempted by Natasha about evictions, so that's fine. The other comment I have is just a very small error on the paper, 127, 3.19. It says the graph at 319 below, it should be 320.
Yes, I noticed that this morning, so I will get that corrected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your microscope of scrutiny there, Caroline.
Well, I beat Grant to it, didn't I?
Yes. I'm going to speed up. We're well behind time now. I know the white paper was always going to be the long issue of this meeting. Plus, we've also got the other item to come on under exempt yet as well. So I'm going to try to speed this up for all of our benefits. So are there any other questions before I move to these recommendations?
No other questions.
Thank you. Right, so we've got the recommendations. Excuse me. We've got the recommendation, which the Cabinet to approve adoption of the Greater Norwich Homeless Strategy 2020-25 and South Norfolk and Broadland Rough Sleeper statement. Now, just picking back up on where you were, Grant. Obviously, if you want to put that as a proposal, then we'd need a seconder. Personally speaking, looking at the situation with homelessness and the transitory nature of it, and also the funding which the officer mentioned, which I'm aware of, wearing another hat and another life. I personally wouldn't support that. I will personally support the recommendation as it is. However, we can take this to the vote if there was a seconder for your proposition. So I'm just asking if there is. If there isn't, I'll move to this recommendation as I've just read out. So
I can't see a seconder, Chairman.
Okay.
No.
Okie doke. Okay, so in that case, Grant, I'll move on to the recommendation as is. Cabinet to approve the adoption of Greater Norwich Homeless Strategy 2020-25 and South Norfolk and Broadland Rough Sleeper Statement 2020-22. Is that approved?
Looks like all in favour, Chairman.
Thank you. Thanks very much, officers. And the next item is item 12, loans to parish councils. There was reference to this at a past scrutiny meeting as well. Lead officer is Rodney, who will lead on this and present. And again, welcome, Rodney, and please amplify.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully this will be a quick report, but you never know. That's obviously in your hands, very much depending on the discussion. But very much this is following up from the 16th of June Cabinet, where actually members endorsed the idea of offering loans to town or parish councils in order to actually help them through any short-term financial issues until they're able to increase the precept. This very much is just following up on the governance of doing that, and very much just asking for agreement that actually if any council was to approach us for a loan of under £25,000 that they were proposing to repay within 5 years, then I would have the delegated authority to agree that in consultation with the portfolio holder for finance. And indeed, this is just proposing that the interest rate on that loan would be base rate plus 1%. So very much it is for members to sort of consider this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rodney. I just also, I'm not sure how many members are aware, but we did also, when we debated this earlier and it went through to Cabinet, there was the issue, and Grant had originally raised this issue about help for town and parish councils in terms of business support, and that came through. and there's a portfolio holder decision on that. It was subject to call, I didn't call it in, and I know my own town councillor and ward member benefited significantly from that. We're talking about many thousands. I won't talk about the exact figure. So that point actually did get covered under some government support. This is actually about loaning. I don't know if there are any councillors who wish to ask anything on this before we move to recommendation. Is there?
No, I can't see any questions.
Okie dokie. So straightforward recommendation here is helpful to parish councils. So I propose that we that we do support this recommendation. It delegates the Assistant Director of Finance in consultation with Portfolio Holder Finance authority to agree COVID-19 related loans for parish councils of up to 25,000, provided these are repayable within 5 years. All those in support, please show.
That looks to be unanimous, Chairman. Oh, I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure about Councillor Nurden. Is he in support?
No, not in support.
Okay, so registering that you vote against, Grant, yeah? Okie dokie. So you've got the figures, you've got the figure there, James, yes?
I think so. I can just bear with me a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in favour, 1 against.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Rodney. We move on to agenda item 13, Council Tax COVID-19 Hardship Fund 2020-21, Emergency Procedures Policy, page 176 on the Cabinet agenda. The Officer, Richard Dunshire, of Housing and Wellbeing, Senior Manager, will present. Please amplify, Richard.
We lost Richard.
We lost Richard.
I think we've lost Richard. He is showing. Oh no, here he is.
Sorry, I'm back in. Sorry, someone was talking to me. It's one of those days in the office. I do apologise. Have we moved on to the council tax report?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, I've just asked you to amplify, Richard, which obviously you didn't hear. So fire away, please.
So, just to check before I put my foot in it any further, we are definitely on the council tax. Me going through the council tax report.
Agenda item 13, Council Tax COVID-19 Hardship Fund 2020.
I do apologise again. Sorry, as I said, it's operationally a difficult time. Right, so this is largely a catch-up situation whereby we were recommended by central government or required by central government to make payments of £150 in addition to their normal council tax reduction payments. It wasn't so much of an ask. It was more of a you need to do this and you need to put this into payment. We therefore were unable to go through the normal governance process in the times that we would normally like to do it, to make sure that we had full disclosure and permission to do so before we made the payments. The funds were issued to us by us under the discretionary powers section 13A 1C of the Local Government Finance Act, and as I'm sure you know, Broadland District Council was paid £637,216. Within the guidance, they also gave each council the permission to top slice a certain amount of money to be able to pay more of a discretionary fund. At that moment, we didn't really have an idea of how much was going to be required from that budget. I can tell you, as of today, we're circa £12,000. We're not at the £100,000 that we anticipated. As the demand on the direct hardship fund has been less than originally anticipated, we will be looking to reduce that allocation and bring the budget back in to be able to allow us to continue paying the £150 ongoing. And this will be brought ahead to your attention by finance within the next cycle of meetings. However, within this report, it still talks about the original £100,000 that we decided to top slice. Due to the requirement that we had to do this, we are now planning to go to Cabinet to retrospectively agree the policy for COVID-19 Hardship Fund 2020-21, so we can continue to administer the Hardship Fund following the central government guidelines. So that's my ask today, please.
Thank you, Richard. Just opening this up for councillors. Any questions, clarification?
Doesn't appear to be any questions.
I've got a question, Chair.
Sue?
I'm just wondering, could we just have a summary of where this £150 is going? How is that allocated?
So the £150 is a very strict requirement, so people have to be eligible for council tax reduction support. Okay, so what we did initially is we paid everybody who had an active council tax reduction claim. Then every time someone is claimed during this financial year, normally they would only be eligible to a certain amount, up to 83%, depending. If they were pensioners, they were eligible for more, up to 100%, but 83%. This £150, in essence, makes people essentially non-liable for council tax. However, if someone was only eligible for £1 per week or £1 per month towards the council tax reduction, they still would be eligible for a £150 top up. It's just kind of a standard. Here's £150 on top of your normal eligibility.
Yep. There's criteria, Richard, isn't there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okie dokie, thank you. If there's nobody else,
we've got Caroline, Karimi Gouvanlou, and then Nigel Brennan.
Okay, Caroline, far away.
Sure. Thanks, Richard. Just excuse my ignorance on this, but does the £150 go towards people who have a reduction in their council tax already, for like having a disabled person living at home?
No, so it depends. If they're eligible for council tax reduction, so say it's the 25% deduction that people get, say single occupancy, that they don't get this. They only get this if they are eligible for the actual council tax reduction policy. Okay, so say you're low income people largely.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
And sorry, I missed who the second councillor was.
Nigel Brennan.
No, your cold's getting worse.
Sorry.
No, I've been through it. I'm at the tail end of it now. Nigel, far away.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just, first point, clarify that this is a report to Broadland Cabinet, is that correct? Specifically Broadland Cabinet?
Yes.
Yes.
So if we go to page 178 under issues and risks, at 6.7, it says the risk to South Norfolk would be a financial overspend. I'm confused. If it's a Broadland Cabinet paper, why is there any reference to South Norfolk in the risks if we're sovereign councils?
You're 100% correct. I'm just trying to find it. This is an error completely on my part.
Or is it just a typo?
It's a typo. It's a full typo. 100%.
Right, so
I'm glad you picked it up so I can change it. So it'll be the risk to Broadland. So that will be the form that goes to Cabinet.
Right. So in other words, there is a risk that Broadland would have a financial overspend. Would that be correct?
Yes, but the current projections says that we should be okay. And the same issues rose regarding the discretionary housing payments we were talking before. Rodney and Jen, who works for Rodney, we report every single month about what the expenditure has been for these additional £150, so we can do the suitable financial planning to see if we do require more money. Because we haven't had the demand as initially expected for a £100,000 top slice, we should be absolutely okay. It just, we need to keep it constantly under review because of the impact on the economy moving forwards due to the COVID-19 restrictions.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Richard. Thanks for that clarity.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. Yeah, and the 12,000 is well short of the 100 prediction. And remember us going through this before. But as you say, if it does get to that limit, then obviously, you know, be coming back. Anyone else just for I move on recommendations, Linda?
No others.
No. Okie dokie. Thank you, Linda. Right. Okay. So move forward to recommendation. Cabinet to retrospectively agree the policy for council tax COVID-19 hardship fund 2020-21, so we can continue to administer hardship fund following the central government guidelines. All those in favour of that recommendation, please show.
That looks unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. We'll move on to the next item, agenda item 14. Risk management policy and strategy, page 182. And I believe, Emma, that you're lead officer on this. Please amplify.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Faye's currently on maternity leave, so you've got me for this one, but I would like to express my thanks to Faye because this has been a labour of love for her over probably the last year to 18 months to bring this before you today. And she's worked close with the Audit Committee and particularly Grant as chair. So this proposed policy and strategy has been through the Audit Committee and they have had a number of meetings to make sure that they're happy with the approach that's being endorsed. Obviously, as it's a policy, it needs Cabinet approval and sign off, hence it being with yourselves today. So there are two elements that we'll be asking Cabinet to recommend on for approval. One is the risk management policy and strategy itself, and then the other is to consider and approve the proposed risk appetite. The proposed risk appetite is for Cabinet to endorse. Obviously, they make the executive decisions, so they need to be comfortable with the risk appetite that's being proposed. Chairman, I won't go through the report in detail, but I think it's important to note that this policy brings the council very much in line with best practice. It's a brand new approach for the council. It's adopted SIT for best practice and the Institute of Internal Auditors best practice in terms of risk management. And it's very much designed to ensure that this is a live and living document and not something that just lives on the shelf. A lot of risk policies fall down because they sit on the shelf and we dust them down every now and again. So this is very much designed to make sure that that can be fluid. It links into the performance measures that you've had before you previously today on the delivery plan, and it also links into the budget setting. So it gives you a full flavour of where we are as an organisation and as a council, what it will cover and what it will bring through on a regular basis to Cabinet, and obviously through ONS as part of your pre-Cabinet will be the strategic risks that the council faces. Operational risks will be managed by officers, but there will be an escalation process in place to push those up the chain of command to a strategic risk should the need be there and if it's not being mitigated appropriately. So I will leave that there, Chairman, but I didn't know if you wanted to invite Councillor Nurden to pass any comments as Chairman of the Audit Committee.
You need to unmute, Steve.
Sorry, I took myself off mute because I've still got this talent of this cold and I was coughing away then. I didn't want to disturb Emma. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, just before I let Grant in, and it is really appropriate for Grant to come in. He's been heavily involved in this. This has been rattling around for the best part of 2 years in terms of this risk. It went backwards and forwards for quite some time. It's taken some time to fine tune this and get this proposition right. Just to let you know how long that's been viewed and looked at. So Grant, please fire away. I know you've been heavily involved in this on the Audit Committee chair, as Audit Committee chair. Please comment, Grant.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. A lot of work has gone into getting this policy and strategy to where it is today, and I particularly want to thank the officers for the work that they've done on this, but also Councillor Nigel Nigel Shaw, sorry, for initiating this whole process as the former chair of the audit committee. I know that he was championing it for a number of years, so I'm very pleased that it has arrived ready for approval and adoption. It is, as I was mentioning about the rough sleeper thing, it is a Broadland only document, even though it contains the exact same wording as the one in South Norfolk. So it's fully endorsed by the audit committee, and I recommend it to you for adoption.
Thank you, Grant. I'd second that as well. Obviously, just need to check with the meeting members if they've got any points of clarification. Just to reiterate your point, and Nigel as well, all credit to Nigel. I do remember Nigel raising this some time ago, and also Nigel struggling with some committee members in terms of what this was all about at the time, and he was always correct about this. Yeah, and thank you, Nigel, for your pre-work on this as well. Any points of clarification or questions, councillors?
I believe Councillor Brennan would like to speak, Chairman.
Nigel, fire away, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, if I can just go to the actual matrix at the end of this report, and may I say that the actual report is very good. Faisal put a lot of work into it. Sorry, page 198. Apologies, Chair.
Thank you.
Right, so the actual matrix of classifications of the various risk areas and how they're classified. I'm a little bit concerned about the classifications at the top under impact type. Start with just the first one, financial loss, classified as insignificant at any sum between nothing and effectively £9,999 because it's under 10k. I can't think of any way that if the council lost the £9,999 for whatever reason, which I'm assuming this is something which is not being identified in any other way, how could I explain to a ward member, well, £9,999 of your council tax has just gone missing? So I'm wondering if that really is not an insignificant risk, and I then follow that down through the matrix. And I know this is late in the day, but I'm not familiar with this report prior to this as far as I know. But I wonder if the classification at the top should actually start with minor instead of insignificant, and then move across moderate, significant, severe. And we actually ought to have the last one should be extreme, because if we lose £500,000, that's pretty, that's more than severe. That's an extreme problem. So I wonder if it's just a classification's changed at the top, but other than that, all the boxes can stay the same. So we're effectively getting rid of this insignificant, because even further down on the insignificant boxes, under reputational, minor unfavourable social media coverage. Well, if somebody put minor unfavourable social media coverage on my account, I wouldn't consider that insignificant. At the very least, that would be minor. So I have to ask again, are these classifications, the actual items within all the boxes, great, but should the classifications actually start from minor? If it's insignificant, it's not even worth mentioning, in my opinion, humble opinion.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. So, Grant and Emma, do you want to cover this point?
I'm happy to, and then I'm sure Councillor Nurdon can add, because I do know there was a lot of conversation at the audit committee about the policy in a whole. In terms of the terminology, as I said, that is in line with best practice, and we're trying to follow best practice as much as we can with this. I do note your comments that you make there, Nigel. The values themselves were kind of drawn from what the Constitution, kind of where your authority levels are within the Constitution. I agree, any losses is not acceptable, but I'm happy to defer to the chair of the audit committee to comment further if he thinks. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Grant?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, thanks, Emma, as well. I totally agree with what Councillor Brennan is saying. What I would just comment about the significance of the financial loss of below £10,000 is what impact that would have on the delivery of the service concerned. And that is that I believe that even if we do suffer a below £10,000 loss, it will not significantly impact on the delivery of the service. And so that is why it is possibly looking at that. It's really impact that we're looking at, and it won't have a significant. So I don't know if you could change the word to such an extent that it says that it's not going to make a significant impact on the delivery of our service.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that, Grant. Yeah, but it does worry me. If this goes out into the public domain, I'm just concerned that our residents are going to look at it in a completely different manner to the way in which we perhaps are looking at it. As I said, I went down to the reputational, and then we got, just again, without trying to take up too much of everybody's time, statutory legal, the bottom line, isolated non-compliance. Well, I accept what you're saying, Grant, but if there's non-compliance, that's important. That's not insignificant. Somebody somewhere along the way is not complying. I don't see that's insignificant. I do have a problem with this first box, and I'll say, if I may just, repeat, should we not just shift everything across to the left, get rid of the insignificant heading, and have another category at the end where things are pretty extreme? Because again, just take you up briefly, health and safety, over to the right, fatality, and that's considered to be severe. Well, if somebody dies at work as a result of something that's gone wrong, that's pretty extreme. I just worry about the way. I feel they should all be shifted a little bit to, or skewed, if you like. So,
I hear what you're saying. What I could suggest possibly is that the heading be entitled "Impact on Delivery of Service" as possibly an alternative, and then you could have insignificant as from 0 to 1,000, and then you have low from 1,000 to 10,000, and then minor being 10 to 25, and moderate 25 to 100. But I'm quite happy with the table, what it's trying to say.
So I agree with, totally agree with what the table's trying to say. I say what this is going to be in the public domain, and I'm sorry again, but I wonder how I'm going to be able to explain to somebody in my parish or my ward.
Yeah, that's possibly
how these things can be classed as insignificant. And
yeah,
I would struggle.
Yeah, we have a suggestion by Councillor Prutten.
My suggestion was exactly what you've just said, to amend the title to "Impact on Level of Service." That's exactly what you've just said.
So what you're suggesting, Sue, is that you'd keep
leave the headings exactly as they are. Don't change those. But the title of this grid just says "impact" at the moment. And if you say the impact on the level of service, I think that covers it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Would you think, Grant?
Well, he suggested it himself as well.
No, I saw your comments, Sue.
Right. So your chair of audit, would you say that was appropriate, Grant?
Yes, I'm very happy with that.
Because we reflect this back through to cabinet as well. So I'll be quoting you in this, Grant. You know.
Absolutely, quite happy with that.
We have Susan Holland and Sue Catchpole who would like to come in as well.
So Sue H, Sue C, Sue H first.
Yes, I just want to comment. I am on the audit committee and there was significant discussions about this. But what I think we need to bear in mind is that we're talking about a really large budget here that we operate. This is a risk management system, and really what it's aiming to do is to get people who are responsible for actioning things on behalf of the council to consider risks when they put things into action. And so for me, I think, quite honestly, it's a bit like me losing 50p. I'm not saying, I appreciate it's council money and it's members' money, or residents' money, but I think we're looking at a way of managing our risk here. And so that, to me, this table actually works quite well. So I would like to just say that I think that it's been put together extremely well, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And I think the words that Sue and Grant suggested, just in terms of title, impact on service, just actually demonstrates.
Agreed. I think that will clarify perhaps for people what the purpose of this grid is about, really.
Yeah. Okay. Lucy.
Yeah. Hello. Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to add really that I kind of agree with Nigel that anything that is a negative is an impact, whether it's less than £9,999 or not. So to help staff to avoid even the lowest impact, I think it would be better, yes, to have the title of the table, impact on delivery of service, and then have in that first column very low impact or low impact, just so that it's not actually called insignificant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, I think of just take out the word insignificant and put in low.
Okay.
Because there is still an impact.
Yeah.
The moment you say it's insignificant, sorry, yes. The moment you say it's insignificant, then it's something you don't worry about.
Exactly.
But we should be worried about all of it. However low it is, we should be worrying about it and trying to do something to prevent those things happening. So I'd be happy with the word low, and just to change the title at the top.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come in again? Because I think these titles are actually the sorts of things that are nationally recognised for things like risk registers. I think that's exactly what these titles are. I think once you start changing those, you run the risk of making it slightly less understandable to people who work in that kind of risk management area. And I take your point about the word insignificant, but I think you'll find these are standard titles for a risk management system, and it would possibly be difficult if we change them.
And that's one I've picked up as well. Again, wear another hat as well, and also what Emma described and Grant. So these terms are there in terms of best practice and also what's understood. But I am picking up, Nigel, on what your Brennan, on what your point was. Originally, I think Sue Pruitt, I'm summarising here on the debate, and Sue Pruitt has also picked up, and so has Grant, and that they both said it, and I believe it's a moving second actually on this, that we changed the title to impact on the service or impact on service, and I think that really would suffice, and that's what's being proposed here. Leave the other terms as they are. I'm going to take it that was a moving seconder on that. And I'll put that to the vote. Could we agree on that, councillors? Please show.
Chairman, was that impact on delivery of service?
Yeah.
So you've got right. So I've got Councillor Kelly, Riley, Shaw, Karimi Guvanlu, Pruitt, Holland, Adams and Nurden in favour, and I am assuming from that Brennan and Catchpole are against. So that is carried.
Are you voting against? Just register if you are, or abstaining.
Councillor Brennan against, Councillor Catchpole against. Yes, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. So that is the numbers, James.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that looks like 822.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Okie dokie. Well, thanks for that. So we're going to move on now to the last item, which is, and I need to read the statement exclusion of press and public. This is agenda item. Yes, exclusion. So I'll no, in actual fact, I still haven't covered this recommendation, James. Got a bit sidetracked there. So we just agreed to recommend to Cabinet that we change just the heading on that.
Yes, subject
we still
to
have recommendations to consider and approve the proposed risk management policy recommendation. This to approve council for approval. So it's actually going to council to consider and approve the proposed risk appetite within the risk management policy. So we would now be putting that to the vote for agreement with the amendment that we've just agreed.
Yep.
Okay. So all those in favour of 1 and 2 on the recommendations, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Thank you.
And those against? 1.
Sorry, James, Chair. Can I abstain on that one, please, by virtue of the fact I still don't agree with what we said earlier, please.
So that's 9 and an abstention taking it. Yeah. Thank you. Is that right, Jen? Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, that adds up with the 8-2 previously on the maths. I haven't got my calculator here, but I think that's right. Right, so I'll now move on to the next item. I move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining item of business, because otherwise information which is exempt from information by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006, would be disclosed to them. I so move. Looking for a seconder.
Councillor Adams, the seconded, Chairman.
Thank you, Tony. And I would now ask for